Welcome, everybody. My name is Morgan Wright. I'm the Customer Marketing Manager here at KaiNexus. And today we're doing a preview of our next webinar, My Favorite Mistake, Your Favorite Mistake, Learning from Mistakes as Individuals and Organizations, taking place this upcoming Monday, June 27th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, you can register now at kainexus.com/webinars. And we are joined today by Mark Graban, our senior advisor here at KaiNexus, as our presenter today. How are you, Mark?
I'm good, Morgan. How are you?
I'm doing well. Well, tell us a little bit about this webinar we have coming up.
Yeah, well, I'm often in the role of host, but I decided to go ahead and be the presenter this time. I'm going to give a talk here in the webinar that I gave last month at the KaiNexus, our annual user conference. We were all back together in person again. It was great to be with real people in person. And, I gave a new talk and, I got pretty good feedback about it. So I thought we could share it with a larger audience here in the webinar. So like the title suggests, it's a webinar presentation talking about learning from mistakes, recognizing that we all make them. I certainly make my fair share. But the key thing is, recognizing and being willing to admit a mistake, to reflect on it, and then to make some sort of changes so we don't repeat the mistake. So I think that's one of the key lessons there. And I'll have some thoughts and examples and things to share about how we might apply that approach as individuals. How do we each learn from our mistakes? And, there's a lot of continuous improvement thinking there. But then also to step back and think, well, if we're leading an organization or part of an organization, how do we create a culture where individuals feel safe to speak up and admit mistakes, or even I almost made a mistake, for the sake of learning and process improvement and organizational improvement, if not excellence. So that's really the theme. I think there's something, again, for individuals and for leaders and organizations.
Absolutely. I know I was lucky enough to get a preview at KaiNexus of your presentation, and I absolutely loved it. But going back quickly, you mentioned your podcast, of course, My Favorite Mistake, where you talk about everybody's, as well as yourselves, favorite mistakes that they have made. So what do you think that your favorite mistake would be?
It's funny to get the table turned to be asked that, because that's the one question I ask everybody on the podcast. It's, over 180 people that I've interviewed, and I've published 170 of those episodes so far. So, people share favorite mistake stories from their career. From their workplaces, a favorite mistake that was meaningful to them because it led to growth. It opened an unexpected new door. A favorite mistake is not the same as our biggest mistake usually, right? It's big enough that we remember it, we think about it, it's helped us in some way, or it's just a mistake that we've managed to avoid repeating. So a lot of times people talk about, career decision mistakes. And I've got another favorite mistake I'll share in the webinar, but the one short story, like when it comes to career mistakes, back in 1999, I took a job with, we'll just call it a major computer company based in the Austin, Texas area. And, I didn't stay. I mean, it wasn't even 2 years where I decided that company really wasn't a good fit for me long-term. I was able to do interesting work. It wasn't the worst mistake ever, but it was a big enough mistake where I ended up moving on to another company. But, one reason I call that, at least one of my favorite mistakes, is that I met my wife while I was working there. Or, we got married a couple years after that, and 20 years of marriage. So, even if there's, I think that's a more personal example of even where, a career mistake in that case led to something very positive. So that's why I would call that a favorite. And in the webinar, I'll share a more directly workplace related example that I think continuous improvement people would relate to. Earlier in my career, I'll just say it had to do with not properly engaging people in change. but that was something I've tried to learn from and make sure I'm not in that situation or not acting the same way again. So plenty of mistakes, a couple of them that I would call favorites.
Well, thank you. I love the personal as well as professional examples. That's really great. Well, Mark, thank you for the preview. Remember, everybody, you can register for the webinar on Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on kainexus.com/webinars, but also look for the link in the show notes.
Well, I hope everybody can join us. And, Morgan, thank you for, again, playing the role of host in the webinar. You did a great job last time, and thank you for collaborating here on the preview podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you.